My name is Greg, and I'm a 35-year-old graphic designer. I've been married to Jenny for 4 years, and in that time, we've built a life together that I thought was grounded in trust and understanding. Jenny is an energetic woman with a passion for staying healthy, and we've always supported each other when it comes to fitness, whether it was weekend hikes, morning jogs, or occasional gym sessions. But something changed about 6 months ago. Jenny's sudden obsession with fitness wasn't something that happened overnight, but it felt like it came out of nowhere. At first, it was small. She started attending fitness classes more regularly, maybe a few times a week. She'd ask me to join her for yoga or Pilates, but I wasn't as into it as she was, so I'd usually decline. I didn't think much of it at the time. Everyone has their own interests, right? But then over time, things escalated. She began spending more and more time at the gym, talking about her workouts and progress with such enthusiasm that I could tell it was becoming a bigger part of her life. She started eating differently too, swapping out whole meals for protein shakes and obsessively tracking her calories. She even invested in a personal trainer, someone she'd been recommending to all her friends. Now, Jenny's always been a little competitive. She likes to push herself, which I admired. But the way her fitness goals started to take over our daily life was something I couldn't ignore. I'd come home from work, and she'd be in the kitchen, preparing a meal, or heading out the door to her latest workout session. At first, I was happy for her, proud of her dedication, but soon I began to feel like there was something off. One evening, she came home later than usual. It was almost 9 p.m., and I just finished cleaning up after dinner when the front door opened and Jenny walked in. A little out of breath, but smiling brightly. "Hey, how was your workout?" I asked, my usual greeting. "Good," she replied, a little too enthusiastically. "My trainer really pushed me today. It's crazy how much progress I'm making. I can already feel the difference." "Trainer?" I raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were done for the day." She waved it off, clearly distracted. "I just met with him for a bit of extra training. He's really helping me with my form. We're working on new techniques, and it's been great for my progress." I nodded, trying to remain positive, but something in the back of my mind made me pause. Jenny hadn't mentioned meeting with her trainer after hours before. I thought it was just during regular gym hours, but this was different. "Oh, I didn't realize you were meeting him after hours," I said casually, trying to keep my tone neutral. Jenny seemed to freeze for a moment, but she quickly recovered, a nervous smile on her face. "Yeah, he's just really dedicated, you know? He doesn't mind staying late. I don't think it's a big deal." I nodded again, though something didn't sit right with me. I didn't want to sound suspicious or controlling, so I decided to let it go, at least for the moment. But as I went to bed that night, I couldn't shake the thought that maybe I'd missed something. Jenny had always been straightforward with me, and while I trusted her, I couldn't ignore this sudden shift in her behavior. Over the next few days, I started noticing more changes. She was texting and calling her trainer constantly, even outside of workout hours. Whenever she spoke about him, she mentioned how dedicated he was, how motivating he was, and how much he cared about her fitness goals. But there was something else in her tone now, a little too much admiration, a little too much affection in her voice when she spoke about him. And that nagging feeling in the back of my mind grew stronger. I didn't want to overreact. Jenny was an independent woman, and I knew that. She had every right to pursue her fitness goals and build relationships with people who helped her along the way. But the way she seemed to be gravitating toward her trainer, this man I knew nothing about, was starting to make me uneasy. A few weeks later, I decided to stop by the gym after work. Jenny had told me she'd be training with her personal trainer, so I thought I'd swing by and say hello. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but I knew I had to follow up on this gut feeling I couldn't shake. I walked into the gym, scanning the area for Jenny. The place was busy, people working out on the machines, others on the treadmills, but I didn't spot her right away. I walked past a few more machines when I saw them, Jenny and her trainer. They were talking near the free weights section, standing a little too close for comfort. Her trainer, a tall, fit guy in his late 30s, was laughing, his hand placed lightly on Jenny's shoulder as they chatted. Something about the way they interacted made me pause. It wasn't just professional. It was friendly, yes, but there was an intimacy in the way they stood together, in the way his hand lingered on her shoulder just a little longer than necessary. Jenny seemed completely at ease, laughing along with him, not a care in the world. I stayed where I was, watching for a moment, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was probably nothing, I told myself. But then I saw her trainer lean in just a little too close as he spoke to her, and for the first time, a small voice inside me screamed, "This isn't just about fitness." I didn't know what I was supposed to do with this new information, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let it go. Jenny's sudden obsession with fitness, her late-night meetings, the way she spoke about him, there was more to this than just personal training. The next few days passed in a blur of normalcy, and I tried to go about my usual routine, but I couldn't shake the image of Jenny and her trainer at the gym, standing too close to one another, her laughter a little too genuine. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again. I didn't know if I was being paranoid or if something was truly off, but I knew something had changed. That night after dinner, I casually asked Jenny about her day. She smiled, sitting across from me at the table, her usual cheerful self. "It was good," she said. "Training was great. My trainer really pushed me today." I paused, my fork halfway to my mouth, and looked at her. The way she said it, so casually, was almost too much, like she didn't notice the weight her words carried. "That's good," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "You've been working so hard lately. I can see the difference. But, has he been keeping you on track? Like, pushing you to your limits?" Jenny raised an eyebrow, giving me a curious look. "Of course. You know he's dedicated, Greg. He really wants me to reach my goals. And we've been working on new things every session. I can't believe the progress I've made." She said this with so much enthusiasm, like she was talking about an inspiring mentor or a close friend. And maybe that's what bothered me the most. She spoke about him with a level of admiration I hadn't heard before. It wasn't just about the workouts anymore. It was something deeper, something that felt like it was starting to cross a line. "You've been spending a lot of time at the gym, huh?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Jenny didn't seem to notice the underlying tension in my voice. "Yeah, well, it's important to me. You know that. I've got goals and I'm determined to meet them. My trainer's been really helpful." She took a sip of her wine, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I pressed on, though I knew I was treading dangerous ground. "Has he been meeting you after hours a lot?" Jenny froze for a moment, her eyes darting briefly to the side, but only for a split second. It was a small gesture, almost imperceptible, but it sent a jolt of suspicion straight through me. "No," she said quickly, too quickly. "We're always done during regular hours. He just sometimes stays a little late if we're working on something important. It's no big deal." I nodded, though I wasn't convinced. The way she avoided my gaze, the way her words slipped out, felt off. But I didn't press further. Instead, I chose to let the conversation hang there, knowing that I needed more than just her words to figure out what was really going on. Over the next few days, I started noticing small things that only fueled my growing suspicion. Jenny's phone would buzz constantly while she was at home, and she would immediately glance at it, her expression unreadable, before quickly putting it down. It wasn't like her. She used to be more open about everything, including what was happening at work or with her friends, but now there was a wall. One afternoon, I came home earlier than expected from work, and as I opened the door, I noticed Jenny's phone lying face up on the kitchen counter. She had left it there, unlocked, the screen displaying a message that caught my eye. It was from her trainer. "Trainer, I'll see you tonight, same time. Looking forward to our session. You're doing amazing, Jenny. I'm proud of you." I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding. The message seemed innocuous enough, but something about it felt too intimate. "I'm proud of you." It was the kind of phrase someone says when they're close to you, when there's a level of familiarity that goes beyond professional boundaries. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about fitness anymore. There was something else between them. I didn't want to snoop. I didn't want to be the kind of husband who invaded his wife's privacy. But I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my chest, the feeling that everything I thought I knew was slipping away. I needed answers, real ones. Later that evening, I took another walk around the neighborhood. I needed to clear my head, to think. But as I walked, my thoughts were clouded with doubt. I kept returning to the fact that Jenny had become almost obsessed with her trainer. It was all she talked about these days, and I couldn't figure out why. Was I overreacting? Was I just imagining things? That's when I decided I couldn't sit in the dark any longer. I had to know the truth. The next day, after Jenny had left for her workout session, I decided to follow her. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to become the kind of person who resorted to sneaky behavior to find the truth. But something in me knew I couldn't keep going like this, pretending everything was fine when I could feel the distance growing between us. I waited for Jenny to leave and then got into my car, following her from a distance. I kept my distance, not wanting to be noticed. She drove straight to the gym, just as I expected. But this time I didn't stop there. I waited outside in my car, watching. A few minutes later, she walked out of the gym, looking satisfied. But something caught my eye. Her trainer was walking beside her. They were laughing together. Too much laughter for just a workout. I watched as they stood on the sidewalk talking, then saw her trainer place a hand on Jenny's back as he spoke to her. Too close, too intimate. And in that moment, I knew. My hands were shaking as I sat in my car, watching Jenny and her trainer laugh together outside the gym. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe how naive I had been, how I had convinced myself that everything was fine, that her late-night workouts and constant praise for her trainer were just part of some new health kick. But it wasn't just fitness anymore. It wasn't about her getting healthier or pushing herself to her limits. There was something else, something more. And now I had the undeniable proof that there was more to their relationship than just training. I felt sick to my stomach as I watched them. It was the way they interacted. It wasn't just professional. It wasn't just a friendly relationship. The way they stood so close, the way her trainer touched her back as they spoke, it was something more, something intimate. I didn't know how long I sat there, frozen in my car, watching them. But the reality of what I was seeing settled in, and it made my head spin. This wasn't just about a personal trainer. This was about betrayal. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, that I didn't know what was going on behind my back. I drove home, the tension building in my chest with every passing second. I tried to prepare myself for the conversation that was coming, but I knew there was no way to be prepared for this. There was no way to soften the blow of what I was about to say. The truth was right in front of me, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. When I walked in the door, Jenny was already home, her gym bag tossed by the front door. She had a towel around her neck, her face flushed from her workout. She looked up at me, a smile on her face, but it quickly faded when she saw the look on mine. "Hey, Greg, you okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. But I could see it, the nervousness in her eyes. She knew something was coming. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice low and steady, though my chest felt like it was about to explode. Jenny's smile faltered, and she stepped closer. "What's going on? You're scaring me a little." I shook my head, trying to calm myself, but the anger was bubbling to the surface. "I'm scared too, Jenny. Scared of what I've been seeing. Scared of what I've been ignoring." Jenny looked confused, but I didn't have time to sugarcoat it anymore. "I saw you today. I saw you with him, with your trainer." Her eyes widened, and I could see her cheeks flush with guilt. "Greg, No." I cut her off, holding up my hand. "Don't try to deny it. I saw you with him, laughing, talking, too close. You're more than just his client, Jenny. I can see it now. I know what's been going on." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I could see the panic in her eyes as she searched for a way to explain herself. But there was nothing she could say that would make this okay. The trust between us had already shattered. "You've been seeing him behind my back. For months, Jenny. All this time you've been lying to me. And I've been sitting here thinking everything was fine. You've been going to him for more than just fitness advice, haven't you?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked down at the floor as if trying to avoid my gaze. She didn't answer, but I didn't need her to. The silence said everything. "Tell me I'm wrong, Jenny," I demanded, my voice shaking with the anger I could no longer hold back. "Tell me I'm wrong, and I'll walk away from this conversation right now." She didn't say anything for a long time, her hands trembling at her sides. Then slowly she looked up at me, her expression full of shame and regret. You're not wrong, she whispered, barely audible. I, I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want this. But I got caught up in it, Greg. I got caught up in how he made me feel. How he made you feel, I repeated, my voice growing louder. What are you saying, Jenny? What are you really saying? She closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek. He made me feel alive again, Greg. He made me feel like I was more than just the wife, the woman who was just stuck in her routines. I've been so focused on my fitness, on how I look, on how I feel. I didn't think about you. I didn't think about us. And it just happened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you went to him for more than just training? You went to him because he made you feel special? Jenny nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to lose you. I don't know how to explain it. You don't need to explain it, Jenny, I said, my voice cold. I understand. I understand perfectly. You've been having an affair with him. You've been betraying me for months, and I've been too blind to see it. You've been lying to me, and now I have to face the reality of what you've done. Jenny stepped toward me, her hands reaching out, but I stepped back, away from her touch. Greg, please. Please don't leave me. I'll do anything to make this right. I looked at her, my chest tightening, the weight of the situation settling in. I don't know if I can stay, Jenny. I don't know if I can move past this. Her face crumpled, and she reached out to me again, but this time I didn't pull away. I stood there frozen, not knowing what to say, not knowing what to do. The woman I loved had betrayed me, and I didn't know how to move forward. The air between us was thick with tension, and for the first time in years, I didn't know who Jenny was anymore. I didn't know how to look at her, how to respond to her. I stood there in the silence, feeling the weight of her confession sinking in, the enormity of what had been happening right under my nose. She was still standing there, her hands reaching out to me again, but I couldn't bring myself to touch her. I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. She had broken something that I didn't know could ever be fixed. I don't know what to do now, I said, my voice shaky, trying to make sense of everything. I don't know what comes next. How do we move forward from this? How do I even look at you the same way again? Jenny's tears flowed freely now, and she stepped closer to me, but I couldn't make myself take a step toward her. I felt frozen, trapped in this new reality that I wasn't ready for. A reality where trust had been shattered, where the woman I loved had betrayed me. Greg, I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice full of regret. I don't know how to make this right. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop. I was stupid. I was selfish. Please just give me a chance to fix this. I love you. The words were like a knife twisting in my chest. She loved me? Did she? Could she still love me after everything? Could I love her again after everything? I don't know if I can, Jenny, I said, the words painful to say. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. You've been lying to me for months. You've been with him behind my back, and I've been sitting here thinking everything was fine. I've been living a lie. I'm sorry, she said again, her voice breaking. I know I've ruined everything, but please don't give up on us. I'll do anything. I'll prove to you that I can change. I can make it right. I shook my head, the confusion in my chest making it hard to breathe. I don't know if I can believe you anymore, Jenny. I don't know if I can look at you the same way after everything. She stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch my arm, but I pulled away, not able to bear the thought of her touching me, of feeling the warmth of her skin when everything between us felt cold. The betrayal felt like a poison, and I couldn't just pretend it wasn't there. I need time, I said, my voice rough. I need space. I need to think about this. I don't know what I want anymore. Jenny's face crumpled, her hands falling to her sides. She looked so small, so broken, and I felt a pang of guilt in my chest. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered right now except the fact that my whole world had been turned upside down. I understand, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'll give you the space you need. I'll wait for you to decide what you want. I nodded slowly, my mind still reeling. I couldn't make any decisions right now. I couldn't even think straight. But I knew one thing for sure. Our marriage, our life, could never be the same again. And maybe that was what hurt the most. The next few days were a blur of silence. Jenny gave me the space I asked for, though the distance between us felt suffocating. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of the betrayal, of the lies she had told, and no matter how hard I tried to push it away, the truth kept creeping back into my thoughts. I found myself questioning everything. Our conversations, our laughter, our quiet evenings together, all of it now felt tainted. How long had she been hiding this from me? How long had I been oblivious to the cracks in our marriage? I thought we had a good relationship, a strong one, but now I wasn't sure what was real anymore. At night when I lay in bed, I couldn't escape the thoughts that swirled in my head. Jenny with him, the secret messages, the late night sessions, the intimacy they had shared while I was left in the dark, thinking everything was fine. The worst part was the doubt that gnawed at me, the uncertainty. Could I really forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? Could I move past this, or would the memory of it haunt me forever? I thought about seeing a therapist or talking to someone about it, but every time I thought about opening up to someone else, I felt a wave of shame wash over me. It was my wife who had betrayed me. It was her I needed to confront, not some stranger. But the thought of confronting her again filled me with dread. What could we say to fix this? Could we fix this? On the fourth day of our silence, Jenny came to me, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. She looked at me with pleading eyes as if she was waiting for me to make the next move, to decide what our future would look like. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady but still tinged with sorrow. "I know I've hurt you, Greg. I've destroyed everything, and I don't know if I can fix it. But I want to try. I love you. I want to make this right. But if you can't forgive me, I understand." I didn't know what to say. The words were stuck in my throat, and all I could do was look at her. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, but I also didn't know if I was ready to give up on everything we had. "I don't know what the future holds, Jenny," I said quietly, my voice filled with exhaustion. "I don't know if I can move past this, but I need time. I need to figure out if we can rebuild." The days after our conversation were marked by an eerie stillness. Jenny gave me the space I asked for, but it felt suffocating, like we were both trapped in some kind of limbo, unsure of how to move forward. I couldn't escape the constant questions that rattled around in my mind. What was I supposed to do? Was there a way back from this? Or was this the end of everything we'd built? I found myself doing everything I could to avoid confronting her, but every time I looked at her, I was reminded of what had happened. Her eyes, once full of love and affection, now seemed distant, as if she were a stranger. The woman I had married had become someone else, someone who had lied to me, someone who had betrayed my trust in the most painful way. I kept telling myself that I needed time, that I couldn't make any decisions in the heat of the moment. But the truth was, the more time passed, the harder it became to even look at her. How could I trust her again? How could I move forward when everything felt like a lie? I tried to focus on work, throwing myself into my projects, but even that didn't help. My mind was always elsewhere, replaying the scene at the gym, the way her trainer had touched her, the laughter they shared. It felt like a constant reminder that our marriage was broken, that something irreplaceable had been shattered. I didn't want to talk to my friends about it. I didn't want to open up to anyone else. This was something between Jenny and me, and I felt like I was the only one who could figure out how to move forward. But every time I looked at her, I felt the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me, suffocating me. A week after our last conversation, I couldn't take it any longer. I needed answers. I needed to understand what had happened, why it had happened, and most importantly, what she was feeling now. Jenny had been distant, but I couldn't keep avoiding it. I had to ask the hard questions, even if it meant facing the truth I wasn't sure I was ready for. That night after dinner, I sat down across from her at the kitchen table. She looked up at me, her eyes full of uncertainty, waiting for me to speak. "Jenny," I started, my voice quiet but firm, "I need to know the truth. I need to understand why. Why him? Why did this happen?" She hesitated, her hands trembling as she folded them on the table. For a long moment, she didn't speak. It was like she was trying to find the words to explain something that was unspeakable. "I don't know, Greg," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I don't know why it happened. I didn't plan for it. It just happened. I was looking for something I couldn't find in our relationship. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I felt a pang of anger rise in my chest, but I forced it down. I had to hear her out. I had to understand what had driven her to betray me. "You were looking for something?" I repeated, my voice tight. "What was it? What was so wrong in our relationship that you had to go outside of it?" Jenny looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I don't know, Greg. I felt lost. I felt like I was stuck in a rut, like I wasn't really seen. My trainer, he made me feel alive. He made me feel like I mattered, like I wasn't just someone's wife. I felt attractive, like I had value again, and I let it go too far. I don't know why I didn't stop." I sat back in my chair trying to process what she was saying. "You didn't feel seen? Jenny, we've been together for years. I thought we were a team. I thought I was there for you. I thought you trusted me." "I do trust you, Greg," she said quickly, her voice full of regret. "I do, but I got caught up in it. I let myself get carried away with someone who made me feel wanted, made me feel good about myself. And I was selfish. I didn't think about you or about us. I was just trying to fill this empty space I didn't even know was there." I felt the weight of her words, the pain in her voice, but I couldn't deny the anger that simmered beneath the surface. How could she do this? How could she betray me in this way? I had always been there for her, always supported her. And now she was telling me that it wasn't enough, that I wasn't enough. "Do you love him?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Jenny flinched and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, Greg, I don't love him. It was never about love. It was about something else, something I didn't even understand until it was too late. I love you. I've always loved you. But I was looking for something outside of our marriage, and I didn't know how to stop." The words stung, but a part of me believed her. Maybe she didn't love him. Maybe this was just some twisted escape from whatever had been missing in her life. But that didn't change what had happened. That didn't change the fact that she had chosen him, that she had lied to me, that she had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "I don't know if I can move past this," I said quietly, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Jenny reached across the table, her hand trembling as she tried to touch mine, but I pulled away. "Please, Greg," she begged. "Please don't give up on us. I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll give you all the space you need. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." I stared at her, my heart breaking all over again. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that we could fix this, that we could somehow rebuild the trust that had been destroyed. But a part of me wondered if it was even possible. Could we really go back to what we had? Or was it too late? "I need more time," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to figure out if we can fix this. But I can't promise you anything." Jenny nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, Greg. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." And with that, she stood up and left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The silence in the house was deafening, and I felt the weight of the decision ahead of me. Could I forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? The days after my conversation with Jenny felt like a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My mind kept returning to her words, her tears, her regret. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild what had been broken, that our marriage wasn't beyond repair. But every time I tried to imagine a future with her, the images of her with him, of her betrayal, haunted me. I had spent the past few days replaying everything in my head, asking myself the same questions over and over. Could I ever trust her again? Could I look at her and not see the lies? Could we somehow pick up the pieces and move forward? Or was this the end? I didn't have answers. I didn't know if there was a way back from what had happened. But I knew one thing. I couldn't make this decision in a vacuum. I couldn't pretend that everything was fine, that we could just move on without confronting the reality of what had happened. So I decided to take a step I had been avoiding. I called my best friend Mark. He was someone I had known for years, someone I trusted, and someone who had always been there for me. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me see things more clearly. We met at a coffee shop the next morning. I walked in and saw him sitting at a corner table, his face serious, as if he already knew why I was there. "Hey, man," Mark said as I sat down. "You okay?" I nodded, though the words didn't feel true. "I'm not sure," I said quietly. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Mark. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." Mark studied me for a moment, sensing the weight in my voice. "You want to talk about it?" And so I did. I told him everything. The way Jenny had changed, her obsession with fitness, her late-night workouts, the way I'd caught her with her trainer. I told him how I'd confronted her, how she admitted everything, how she was full of regret and begging for another chance. Mark listened patiently, not interrupting, just nodding as I spoke. When I finished, I sat back, feeling exhausted from reliving everything. "Man," Mark said, his voice low, "that's a lot. And I can't pretend to know what you're feeling right now. But I do know one thing. You have to decide what's best for you. You have to decide if this is something you can move past. If you can forgive her and rebuild, then you've got to give it your all. But if you don't think you can ever trust her again, then maybe it's time to let go." I nodded slowly, the weight of his words settling in. It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was the truth I had been avoiding. I couldn't keep living in this gray area, stuck between forgiveness and resentment. I had to make a decision. That night I sat across from Jenny again, in the same place where we'd had so many conversations. But tonight felt different. The silence was thick, oppressive, and I could feel the weight of what I was about to say hanging in the air between us. "Jenny," I began, my voice steady but filled with the exhaustion of everything I had been carrying. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what's happened, and I've come to a decision." She looked up at me, her eyes full of hope, but also full of fear. "What decision?" she asked quietly, almost afraid to hear my answer. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "I can't forgive you, Jenny. I can't trust you again. What you did, betraying me, lying to me, it's something I can't move past. I've tried, I really have. But I can't pretend that things will go back to normal." Jenny's face fell, and I saw the tears welling up in her eyes again. But I couldn't stop now. I had to say it. "I don't think we can fix this," I continued, the words coming out more easily now that I had made up my mind. "Maybe I was too naive. Maybe I didn't see the signs. But I can't live with the constant doubt, with the knowledge that you've been with someone else while I was left in the dark. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." She started to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. "I'm not blaming you for everything, Jenny. You made a mistake, a huge one. But it's not just the affair that's the problem. It's the fact that you lied to me for months, that you chose him over me. I can't live like this anymore." Jenny nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face as she tried to hold herself together. "I understand," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to lose you. But I understand. I've lost you." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the finality of my decision. "I'm sorry, Jenny. I really am. But I think it's time we separate." She nodded again, a silent acknowledgement that this was the end. I stood up and walked toward the door, my heart heavy, but also relieved. I had made the hardest decision of my life, but it was the right one. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of betrayal. I couldn't keep pretending that everything would be okay. As I stepped out into the night, the weight that had been suffocating me for weeks started to lift. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know where I was headed or if I'd ever be able to love again. But I knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that set you free.